February 1959. The Northern Urals. 9 hikers, experienced, equipped, 40 kilometers from the nearest village. They cut their tent open from the inside and ran barefoot into a -30 blizzard. 3 questions remain. What made 9 trained mountaineers abandon their only shelter? Why were 2 of them found with crushed skulls and no external injuries? And why did it take Soviet science 62 years to give an answer? To understand what happened, we have to meet them first. 1959, Sverdlovsk, a city locked behind the Iron Curtain, a city that no longer exists on any map. 9 students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, athletes, engineers, communists, children of the Soviet thaw. Their leader was 23 years old, Igor Dyatlov. Radio engineering, disciplined, quiet, held a Grade 2 ski tourism certificate, the second highest the Soviet Sports Federation issued. With him, Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22, Ludmila Dubinina, just 20, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonishenko, Nikolai Thibault Brignol, the only one with a foreign-sounding name, his family deported from France in the 1800s, Alexander Kolevatov, 24, and one outsider, Semyon Zolotaryov, 38 years old, 15 years older than the rest, a war veteran, a camp instructor, tattooed. Nobody at the institute really knew him. Their goal? A Grade 3 ski expedition, the highest grade available to amateurs. 270 kilometers, 16 days. They would cross Otorten, the peak whose name in the local Mansi language means, "Do not go there." On January 23rd, the 10 of them boarded a train, north. 3 days later, a 10th member, Yuri Yudin, turned back. Sciatica. He hugged each of his friends, took a group photograph, walked back towards civilization. He never saw any of them again. The plan was simple. Climb west out of Viger, cross the high pass between Kolatsiakl and the unnamed ridge to its north. Summit Otorten. Loop back. They kept 2 diaries, 3 cameras, hundreds of frames of black and white film. Those photographs are the reason we know anything at all. February 1st, mid-afternoon. The group climbs out of the tree line on the eastern slope of Kolatsiakl, the peak whose name, again in Mansi, means Mountain of the Dead. The weather closes in. Visibility drops. They make a decision that would later puzzle every investigator who studied it. Instead of descending 300 meters back to the shelter of the forest, a 40-minute ski, they pitch their tent on the open slope. Exposed. No tree cover, no snowbank windbreak. Above the tree line, in a building snowstorm. Igor Dyatlov's stated reason, found later in the diary, was training. He wanted the group to practice winter camping above the tree line for the harder climbs ahead. They dug a small shelf into the snow, pitched the canvas, took one final photograph. The shutter clicked at approximately 5 p.m. In the frame, the tent half erected, Igor Dyatlov in profile, Zinaida laughing, snow blowing horizontally across the lens. It is the last image any of them ever took. What happened in the next 6 hours, no one alive can tell us, but we have evidence. The tent was found 3 weeks later, slashed open from the inside.
What we now know.
In January 2021, 62 years after the bodies were buried, 2 engineers in Zurich submitted a paper to a journal called Communications, Earth and Environment. A paper that ran a simulation no Soviet investigator could have run. But to understand what they found, you first need to see what the rescuers found.
February 26th, 1959.
25 days after the group fails to send its expected telegram from Viger, a search party of fellow students and military reaches the slope. The tent is half buried in snow, still standing. On the upslope side, 3 vertical cuts, made by a knife, made from inside the canvas. Inside the tent, everything is as it was. Boots lined up, sleeping bags spread, the stove still assembled, food on a plate, the hikers' coats, hats, gloves still hanging. They had run out wearing socks. Some were barefoot. The first tracks lead 1.5 kilometers down slope to a single cedar tree at the edge of the forest. Under the cedar, the first 2 bodies. Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonishenko, half naked, dead of hypothermia, hands frostbitten so badly they could barely grip anything. The branches above them broken up to 5 meters high, as if one of them had climbed to look back up at the tent. Between the cedar and the tent, 3 more. Igor Dyatlov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, Rustem Slobodin, found in a line, all facing back uphill, as if walking back toward the tent, all dead of cold. Dyatlov was clutching a small branch. Kolmogorova's lips were bloodied. Slobodin had a hairline skull fracture, but the medical examiner ruled it could not have caused death. He, too, died of exposure. The last 4 were not found for 2 more months. May 1st, the snow melts. A search team finds them at the bottom of a steep ravine, 250 meters east of the cedar. Ludmila Dubinina, Semyon Zolotaryov, Nikolai Thibaut Brignol, Alexander Kolevatov. 3 of them had injuries that should have killed them instantly. Crushed ribs in Dubinina and Zolotaryov, equivalent, the pathologist wrote, to a high-speed car crash. A fractured skull in Thibaut Brignol, and no external wounds, not a single bruise on the skin. It was as if the force came from inside.
The Soviet inquiry closed the case 3 months later. Cause of death, quote, a compelling natural force which the hikers were unable to overcome. No one knew what that force was. Then the file was sealed for 30 years. In January 2021, 62 years later, Johan Gaume of EPFL Lausanne and Alexander Puzrin of ETH Zurich publish a 14-page paper. They run a finite element simulation. They ask a single question. Could a slab avalanche release on a 30-degree slope after 9.5 hours of slow katabatic wind loading? Their answer? Yes. A delayed slab, a slow, silent slide of dense wind pack, could have released at around 1 a.m. as the hikers slept.
Not the loud powder avalanche people imagined. A quiet block of compacted snow, sliding down onto the lower half of the tent. The hikers, half buried, supine, with their gear under their bodies, receive forces equivalent, the simulation shows, to a high-speed crash. To the chest, to the skull, with no broken skin, because the snow distributes the load. They cut the tent, they run. The strongest carry the weakest. They reach the forest. They build a fire. The strong ones die first, of cold, trying to dig back uphill. The injured ones die last, of cold and internal bleeding, in the ravine where they had retreated. The simulation matches every injury, every position, every detail of the autopsy. And yet, it does not explain everything. It does not explain the orange glow seen by other hikers 30 kilometers away that night. It does not explain the elevated radiation on 2 of the body's clothing. It does not explain Dubinina's missing tongue. Most pathologists say scavenger animals, but no one is fully sure. What the Gaume Puzrin paper gives us is not a complete answer. It gives us a mechanism, a physics that makes everything else stop needing the supernatural. 9 people,